Hello and welcome to another episode of Rico'S Rants. I'm your host, Rico DiGiorgio. I'm trying to keep my eye there. It's been a while. Since I've done some rants, and I've been wanting to do these for a while, and I finally am finally recovered from my flu. Um, so I watched some movies. Dino, you gonna say hello? You can see the shadow of Dino right here. There he is. And Dino, I love you, but you're kind of ruining my shot, buddy. Yeah, sorry. Lethal Weapon. One, two, three, and four. That's what I'm doing right now. Let's get your butt out of the frame. There we go. So I rewatched them because they were added onto Netflix. And this was a series that like I was a huge fan of when I was like 13, 14 years old. My friend Michael and I were rewatching them over and over. Like it was a movie that any of them, they were movies that we could just rewatch all the time. It was never a, it's like if we were bored, we're like, let's put on Lethal Weapon. Which one? Any of them? Who cares? And I got my dad to, he'd never seen any of them. So I was like, Dad, you should check these out. They're really good. So I put on like the first one for him and then the second one. And he likes them. I mean, he hasn't finished them, but he likes them enough to be like, ah, yeah, they're pretty good. And I'll talk about what I like and what I don't like, but I'm going to try and do them in order. So to give you an idea of what Lethal Weapon is, the first one, technically, is a Christmas film. It's about as much of a Christmas film as Die Hard is a Christmas film. So it starts off with the tune of Jingle Bell Rock and shots of LA, and then it shows a beautiful half naked woman at a window in a fucking tall apartment building, and she gets on the ledge and jumps and commits suicide, landing on a fucking car. It's viewed as a suicide, and the the thing about it is like the plots are really minuscule. Like every movie, the plot is just kind of like meh. Like it's still a good plot, but the whole point of the Lethal Weapon movies is the relationship as you see transpire between Riggs and Murtaugh. So it's less about the movie itself and more about the characters. So in the first Lethal Weapon, we're introduced to both Martin Riggs and Roger Murtaugh. And I just realized that both their names, the letters reversed, R and M and M and R. Anyways, Riggs is played by Mel Gibson, and he is the title character. He is the Lethal Weapon because his wife had died in a car accident that we're led to believe about a year or two previously of the first film, and so he's suicidal, and he's also amazingly talented at firing weapons and martial arts. So, but he also does not care if he dies. So he cares about the job, but he's kind of hoping someone puts him out of his misery because he can't. He is There's a great poignant scene where he tries to commit suicide, and we're led to sort of believe that he does this on a semi-regular basis. And it. I mean, you can't talk about Mel Gibson without talking about some of the controversy. And Mel Gibson is a controversial figure, whether it's him being an alcoholic or him very often voicing his opinion, whether it's anti Semitism or racism or uh, uh, being overall sexist. I mean, God, sugar tits, that's a fucking interesting quote, right? Not a great one, but still a quote. But you look at these movies and you can't help but be charmed by Mel Gibson. Because, first and foremost, despite his controversies, he is an actor. And he actually is a really good actor. He does the kind of craziness perfectly that you see in this movie, and you also see in the Mad Max movies, and you also see in Braveheart. You also see the Patriot. My dad's a big fan of Patriot and Braveheart. Not that they're historically accurate, but they're just very entertaining. Personally, I think he is a better actor than he is director, even though Braveheart was good. But we're not talking about that. So Lethal Weapon. Um, he is. Will you make up your fucking mind, Cat? You gonna figure out where you're gonna say that, lay down? Do you like that camera? Yeah, I'm talking to you, Cat. Just sit the fuck down. Come on! Fuck is wrong with you? He's gonna probably attack me now as I'm fucking with him. Ow! Fuck! Stop it. So, he is the Lethal Weapon. And he has now been transferred over to being a partner to Sergeant Murtaugh. And Murtaugh is played by Danny Glover. And look, I was never a massive Danny Glover fan, and I honestly, apart from like maybe these Lethal Weapon movies and like Saw, I really can't name too many Danny Glover films. Not ones that super really shine out for him. I want to say he was in Amistad. I never saw Amistad, so I don't know. I know he was in The Color Purple. Never saw The Color Purple. But he's great in these, and he's actually really funny, and a lot of the jokes are all about his age, because when we're first introduced to him, it's his 50th birthday, and he immediately is talking about how he has a beard, he's got a little white in his beard, so he shaves his beard off, and now he just has his mustache. But like for 50, he's in incredible shape. Like I mean, they're both in amazing shape, but like the jokes sort of don't deliver well because he is he looks too young for 50 in some areas, but he does give off the impression that he's a seasoned cop, and he's a little bit more conservative and wanting to kind of control Riggs. And there, like I said, there's a couple great scenes with Riggs, and Riggs is like he tries to commit suicide, and he just is a tearful moment, and it's powerful, man. I mean, you even if you know the movies and you know they make sequels, you like almost believe he's gonna fucking blow his brains out any second. So the first movie, like I said, the plot is really doesn't matter. It's all about um, them solving a murder. There's like heroin shipments, and there's basically Gary Busey is sort of the Riggs that could have been Riggs, because he's also another black ops um, ex-soldier in Vietnam who took the war a little bit too seriously, and has like they're basically bringing Vietnam War to LA basically. And Gary Busey is intimidating in this, but goddamn, can he not act? Um, so it's all about how these two guys are sort of forced to work with each other, and how one of them is fucking nuts, the other one's more conservative. It's very much the introduction to the buddy cop storyline. And this was written by Shane Black. And Shane Black, from what I remember reading, his original script was a little more darker, like considerably more dark. And this is very much an 80s movie where they were very much glorifying the darkness, seediness. They were introducing a lot more drugs and alcohol, gunplay into the films. But even still, they kind of toned back a little bit. And it's still a radar film. And there's still violence, there's still language, a lot of language. But it's a little bit more lighthearted than Shane Black, I think, intended, which is fine. If you don't know who Shane Black was basically the go-to guy for screenwriting in the 80s. One of my all-time favorite films of his is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer. I fucking love that movie. He also recently did The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. which is basically just another Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, like a spiritual sequel set in the 70s. And he's also going to currently write and he also did Iron Man 3. And he's also going to do the new Predator film, which is fitting because his first movie that he actually starred in was in the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you know what the fuck are you doing? Anyways, so Lethal Weapon sort of ends with them becoming closer. Lethal Weapon 2, they're still closer, and then Joe Pesci is introduced as a character named Leo Getz. Whatever you want, Leo Getz. Get it? Ha! Okay. So that's his. He's basically Leo. Joe Pesci has witnessed. He's now needs to be protected by Riggs and Murtaugh. At the same time, he like laundered money for them, for not them. He laundered money for basically a South African diplomat. So South African diplomats are introduced, and they are criminals in their own way. They're trying to smuggle money back into South Africa and blah 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 blah. Like I said, the plots don't fucking matter. This is where the line "diplomatic immunity" comes from, which was spoofed in Family Guy. Are you bored, Gino? Sorry. I guess this is the Rico and Dino rant hour. Don't you bite me, cat. So now there's a third person in the group he's still not a partner, but he's very much the comic foil, and it's Joe Pesci. And Joe Pesci's, I've always been a fan of him, but he's more of a comic foil in this than he is the crazy psychopath like he is in Goodfellas and Casino. Then we get to Lethal Weapon 3, and at this one, it's all about like ex fucking cops that are turning renegade, supplied by a sergeant of like what again, who gives a fuck. And then the fourth one is all about like China and Chinese smuggling and humans trafficking, and Jet Li is the villain, and I think like this is his debut and the first time he played a villain. And at that point in Lethal Weapon 4, it's very much like it looks like a 90s film. You can see that the quality of the film is more high tech. Fucking Mel Gibson has cut off his mullet that he had in the first three films. And then, and I mean, Jet Li fucks them up. And Jet Li's really kind of intimidating. He's very much like, he doesn't say much. So yeah, those are basically the plots of the first four films. Now, the whole reason why I really love these films is because this is arguably one of the few quadrilogies, franchises, whatever, where continuity is like super like the filmmakers, the editors, the actors, whoever, the writers keep an eye on the previous films and reference the other films. I mean, when I watched them, I watched them over the course of like 2 or 3 days. It felt like one long movie because in each film they keep the same actors, like Murtaugh's children. They keep the same actors growing up throughout the film, so it genuinely feels like us, the viewer, are a part of this family because we're watching this family grow up. We're watching Murtaugh's daughter go through dating, go through an acting career. We're watching Riggs sort of go through the trauma of his wife's death, and we find out in the second one, spoiler, murder, um, that he has to sort of let her go. He meets a new woman who's basically the same, like a female version of him, played by Rene Russo, and she was perfect in this. And how they sort of fall in love, and how he's sort of like, I don't know if I'm ready to let my wife who's dead kind of go. I don't know if I'm ready for this, and blah blah blah. But he also was like, it's time. Maybe I should move on, and she's perfect for me, and blah blah blah. And then you see, in the fourth film, there's babies being introduced. Like Murtaugh's daughter is pregnant, and Mel Gibson's new, girlfriend, played by Rene Russo, is pregnant and blah blah blah, and it really genuinely feels like this giant family. And the principal family, the Murtaughs and the Riggs, they basically adopt Riggs essentially. Like now he's a member of the family. And that's a big portion of one of the scenes that I think in the fourth film where he, tells him like, no, in the second film where he says like, I have these kids and they're yours. Your wife does my laundry. I keep my food in your fridge. You have the greatest family, and I can't even. And when you retire, you're retiring me. And there's a big chunk of that where Murtaugh desperately wants to retire and move on, and then he realizes that he'd be sacrificing his best friend, basically. So the stories are really all about love and friendship, and yeah, there's some craziness. There's a lot of shootouts. The action sequences are fucking amazing, especially when they get a little bit more high tech with stunts and cinematography. Like in the fourth one, there's a lot of great action sequences. Um, like there's one where they're on the freeway, like Riggs is like on a table like this being dragged behind a moving truck, and he's just like there's a guy chasing after him in a car, and he just takes a fucking leg and throws it, and it like goes into the windshield. I mean, there's great sequences that like are not exactly believable, but they're still really fucking entertaining to watch. And Joe Pesci, like I said, he after the second one, he comes in the third one, the fourth one, and he's still an annoying little fucking guy who's always complaining. I mean, he kind of is the precursor to Rico's Rants. He's like, let me tell you about the fucking phone companies, okay? You buy a fucking phone, and this is back when cell phones were like introduced. Then they fucking hang up on you. You lose the call. Then you gotta call them again, and they're gonna fucking charge you. They fuck you like they fuck you with everything. Kind of like me. That's kind of like what I do. Like I just complain and rant and shit. But um, as a series itself, it is a go out and fucking see it. Like I fucking love these movies. And some of them are like the third one is not as great, but it's got a lot of great parts. The fourth one is sort of the end of the franchise, but it still has some great action sequences, and Jet Li is really intense as a villain. The second one is really fucking good, but it's got a lot of there are some slow parts. And the first one, is a rocky start, but it's still a classic. So individually, they're different. But as a whole fucking franchise, it is really fucking good. And I really genuinely hope they make another one. Like, I know there's a show, and I know they might be talking about a remake, but I'd rather see Mel Gibson and Danny Glover and Joe Pesci and Rene Russo and all these other fuckers come back for one final film. Like Lethal Weapon 5. I'd rather see a sequel to that than a remake or a TV series. Um, Especially, I mean, Danny Glover still looks good. I think he lives in Oakland. I think he lives in my area. He was born in San Francisco, but I don't know if he stayed around. So overall, that's my rant. Anything bad? The villains are kind of unmemorable. The villains are kind of like especially in the third one, you don't really give a fuck. You don't care about the plot too much. The plot is very much secondary. Um, Gary Busey can't act. Also, I kind of felt like it was random that there are some times where they randomly throw in a character that we're just sort of have to accept. Like in the fourth one, they introduced Chris Rock. That's right, the comedian Chris Rock, and he's another cop on the force. I think he's a detective, and he is the father of Murtaugh's daughters. He is the secret husband of Murtaugh's daughter. So, and he hates him, and he doesn't want her to date or even marry a cop, let alone be impregnated by one. And you could kind of tell, like, there was really a scene missing in the fourth one where Chris Rock and the daughter should have. You didn't genuinely see any love, and I really don't think that Murtaugh and Butters, Chris Rock, had that kind of moment where they sort of got over it and worked it out together. That was one thing that was sort of missing from the fourth one, but I love the end credits of the fourth one because it shows um, it's to the tune of "Why Can't We Be Friends," and as it's playing, the credits show like basically a photo album of like Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, and 4. So like it is genuinely just like even the filmmakers are like this is just a home video of a fucked up family, and I love it. Easily some of uh, my easily one of my favorite franchises. In some ways, I think I love this franchise more than the Die Hard franchise. And Die Hard 1, 2, and 3, especially 1, 2, and 3, are really fucking good. But the franchise on a whole for Die Hard sucks. The fourth one was not that great. The fifth one was fucking god awful. I have no idea if they're even going to do a sixth one. That one just really fucking needs to die hard with a lethal weapon. So I guess Dino and I are going to say goodnight, and he's not happy with me. Um, yeah, go fucking see them. They're on Netflix. Give them a view, and if you can do what I did, watch them all like in a day or two, and you'll understand what I mean. It feels like one long story that is just interconnected, like they're chapters, they're episodes. Especially with binge watching, that wouldn't be fucking difficult for you guys. All right, all right. I may throw in another rant tonight. I watched a couple other movies that I may want to throw in. Other than that, love you all to death. Good night.